Thank you. Hello. Mm-hmm. But and if it's pulling on your ears, yeah. So this is the one that's okay. Okay. Am I on? Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Oh. Welcome to the September congregational meeting at Advent Lutheran Church. We're glad you're all here. I was going to ask Pastor Tim to open us in prayer. Thank you, Pastor Tim.
Lord God, you have taught us the value of things we have taken for granted before. You have taught us the value of gathering. And so we just want to begin by thanking you for gathering us together today. We ask that you would continue to gather us in our minds and in our spirits and in our sense of mission and vision for the future. Lord God, continue to gather us. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting in May. That would be 5/16/21, and that is the first page in your packet after the agenda. So I'm going to give folks just a minute to kind of review those. And to go ahead and ask questions or comments. Yes, Michelle? Yes. Line 4 of the last page of the minutes, it's the sentence starting with Becky McGurr made a motion. And Paul Lehman with an A. Although Paul Lemon has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Okay, anyone else with? I see folks still scanning, so we'll give you another minute here. With the correction of the, okay, Bethany Ewell makes the motion. Do I have a second? Paul Lehman, not Lemon, seconds that motion. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the amended minutes as they stand, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. We have gotten in the habit of raising hands also, and that's just a habit that we've done because some of our council meetings have been a hybrid of in-person and Zoom. So if you see me do that, don't feel like you need to copy me. It's just a habit. So You can use your voice alone if you'd like. Okay. Next on the agenda are reports. So we're going to start with Pastor Tim's report, and I understand his report might tie into things that we mention or that are on the agenda below. So if so, we can decide whether we need to further address that when we get down to those line items. Thanks, Pastor Tim.
Good morning, everybody. So my theme that I've been thinking about during this fall season is come to me, all that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I'll give you rest. This is my fourth pastoral report to the congregation since this pandemic began, and I had the stiff upper lip report, and I had the praying from the belly of the whale report, and I had the it's okay to grieve and, to feel the weight of this report. This is the literal come to Jesus report. Jesus says, if you are weary and carrying heavy burdens, the place to be is not doing your own thing. The place to be is together. He says, come to me when you are weary, and I will give you rest. And in fact, the rest that Jesus offers us is to do something that's meaningful in our community. So I'm here to encourage. I'm here to encourage those who are here. Those who are not here, I hope you will hear us and say, we want you to be with us. You are welcome here. You continue to be welcome here. But this is the come to Jesus report. If you are weary, the place to be is with your brothers and sisters in Christ. And to not assume, here's another thing as we go into the fall, to not assume that something is happening, but rather to make it happen. We have some things that are been part of Advent's DNA in the past, and we want them to continue. We want to do another golf outing next summer. We want to do another sportsman's dinner. We want to do some of these things that have gathered the community and that have given us the ability to focus outward beyond ourselves. And I think the best policy for any ministry of the congregation right now is to not just assume that somebody else is doing it, but to get in touch with the pastor, get in touch with me, get in touch with the council, and ask about it and offer to help. And I think that is pretty much going to do it for me. It was a quiet summer. I think partially just because people were recovering, and that's okay. But if you're weary, this is the come to Jesus report. Come to Jesus. Amen.
Okay, next under reports we have building. So our Building and Grounds Committee Chairman Greg Cunningham put out a little report, but we've had Doug Cunningham put out a report. There have been some exciting things happening with planning, and then we've had a couple of exciting unplanned events happening as well. Doug, would you want to come up and thank you.
Good morning, all. So I kind of spelled it out here. It just takes a lot to keep this the building and the grounds up to speed and everything in order. Currently, the sprinklers, one of the zones doesn't want to shut off right as we speak, so we'll address that after the meeting. But the big item here is this prayer garden committee. So basically, monies over the years have been generated through the bingo at the fair, and part of the thought was a community outreach ministry, because that was being touted to the public at the fair. And so a ad hoc committee's been formed to assess how best to proceed in that area. We will meet next Tuesday. We're meeting next Tuesday for the very first time, and see how we might best proceed. I really don't know how to clarify it any further than beyond that. Yes, Sarah. The concerns with the well? Okay, so within the last month, we've had 2 additional incidents with the well and the water system. I believe it was about approximately 2 months ago. We had a line break on the main line, approximately 6-7 feet away from the wellhead. Just this past Wednesday, we had another failure of that same system. This time it was a break between the main line and the curb stop valve for the irrigation system. It appeared to me as though substandard materials had a hand in that. With that failure at the initial installation. Unfortunately, perhaps at the onset, that was low bid, not necessarily the best materials were utilized. It's very rare when you have infrastructure failures such as this on an institutional building in such a short period of time. And it has a great deal to do with the materials that were utilized at the initial installation. Can I answer any other questions pertinent to the maintenance or care of the building and grounds? We're doing the best we can, and council will address it. All I can say is the repair for something like the water line from the well would be a tremendously expensive endeavor. And we'd probably have to get into some directional drilling. And it'd be, we're going to get through the winter with it. Everything's in good shape at the moment, and we aren't looking to have any capital expenses coming up. Thank you.
So yeah, I just want to thank Doug and his team for taking such good care of our property here and being so responsive when we have had problems, coming right in and helping to identify the problem and figure out solutions. And thank the Lord, so far the problems have been not incredibly expensive, and we've been able to handle them thus far. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about, we're going to hear the financial report from Peter, and then the next thing on the agenda is some stewardship updates. So I think those two things will kind of lend themselves to each other.
All right. I'm going to talk briefly on the materials that are in your handout, and then I have some figures to put up on the screen. Not quite yet, Glenn, but that'll help hopefully make some sense of the numbers. And this is the first time I've done this as a treasurer, so if you have questions, I will do my best to answer them. Might need to phone a friend if they're harder or a longer time ago. So I guess just walking through the numbers that are on the handout. In general, revenues for both building fund and general fund have been quite a bit higher than we budgeted or with building fund, in line with budget. But as I will point out more as we're looking at the figures, I want to remind everybody that our budget assumed a pretty significant shortfall in both of those categories, both general fund and building fund. Directed funds that we have received this year have been primarily, or at least that go into this category, not ministries. This directed funds category is primarily the Custodian Fund. And so our total revenue for the year to date is just under $120,000. Again, that's significantly higher than was budgeted, but budget assumed a significant shortfall in the revenue. As far as our expenses, operational expenses are tracking pretty closely in line with our budget. There's a few nuances due to timing of a few various things, but the majority of those operational expenses are pretty close to budget or slightly under budget. On the non-operational expenses, of which the big expense in that category is worship and music expenses. Music expenses are significantly lower than budget, primarily because we budgeted a decent amount of money for musical supplies and piano tuning and that sort of thing, and have been not spending much money in that category thus far this year. You'll see in that category that agape is shown as a negative value, so that's actually a revenue. We have given more to the agape fund this year to date than the agape fund has spent. And there's a healthy fund remaining in the agape fund as needs arise. So overall, where we stand at this point of the year, our net income, if you see it down at the bottom in the box, is we're about $11,000 short. Again, that's significantly better than where we thought we would be according to the pledges and budgeting, but it is showing a shortfall at this point. And let me maybe go into the figures, and then I can take any questions. So Glenn, if you can pull that up. Hopefully this works again. There we go. Okay, so if you can hit the first line, and I know you're not going to be able to see the numbers from in your seats, but these are figures that I have been providing the last couple of months for council with the monthly reports. This line, this dashed blue line, shows the 2020 expenses and just where those expenses were for the full year last year. And you can see where, fairly consistent trend throughout the year. The second line, this grayer line, I'm sorry, these colors are hard to see here, is our 2020 income. So for last calendar year, expenses and income were pretty close to one another throughout the year. You will note that between March and April, there's a significant jump in the income line that represents the $16,000 PPP loan that we received in April of 2020. And then what I've been doing is comparing these numbers to where we are year to date. Well, actually, sorry, the next, if you hit it again, Glenn, that gold line is our budgeted expenses for this year. So when we set our budgets in December of last year, essentially assuming that our expenses this year would be pretty much in line with what they were last year. Go ahead to the next one. The green line, however, is our budgeted income for the year, and that's the assumed significant shortfall that I mentioned earlier, and that was because our budgeting has primarily relied on pledges, and that giving that way for us to understand the income for the next year. At this point in the year, or with the numbers through August, the difference between those two lines is, that essentially $47,000 that is in the box on your handout. Glenn, if you can hit the next one. Okay. So this blue line is the total, the dark line is the total of our expenses year to date 2021. This is combining both general funds and building fund and mortgage together. So you can see that it's below budget and generally, a little bit less than what we had spent at this point last year. And no real significant surprises in that trend. Go ahead to the last one, Glenn. The secondary gray line shows the income year to date. And so again, you can see that it's the slope of that gray line is pretty similar to the slope of last year's gray line. Our total giving, both building fund and general fund combined, has been very consistent with what it was last year. However, we don't have the benefit of that PPP loan at this point in the year. And so the difference between the dark blue and the solid gray line has widened a little bit in the last few months. We can go ahead to the next one. The other thing that I've done, and these plots are new to everybody, so council, you'll see these starting next meeting. Just trying to give folks a sense of what our sort of cash on hand is. And there's enough categories here that I had to split it up into two figures. This figure shows essentially our dedicated funds from ministries and fundraisers. And you can see that this is going back to January 2020. It's pretty constant through time. Most of those funds are not being significantly drawn down at this point. The one that I will point out that is diminishing is the green bar, and that's for memorials, and that's the Haberman Memorial has been paying administrative salaries this year. Haberman Memorial will be exhausted by this time next month, or by the end of September. The other lines to note on here, the bright blue line in the middle is the bingo at the fair funds. And those are primarily from previous years' bingo at the fair that Doug was mentioning, being dedicated for prayer garden uses. And then there's additional funds that were brought in this year that are dedicated for community food-related ministries. And then if you go to the last one, this other plot shows what's more of our operational accounts. The building fund, our just general checking fund, the custodian fund, all of those together. So you can see that there's a pretty steep drop-off in those funds earlier in this year. And that has to do with a couple of things. Part of it is the approximately $11,000 shortfall that we've had so far this year. Some of that is also paying of our benevolence to the synod from last year, is some of those steeper drops at the beginning of this year. So that is currently, the sum of those categories is currently just slightly negative. So I guess in total, the story is, we're doing a lot better than we had thought we would be based on our pledging and what we assumed we would be, we all would be contributing to the life of the church, but it is still at the point where we are, not quite positive by, roughly 10% of our budget. I will take questions, and I will probably repeat them in here in case there's people watching.
I just wanted to reiterate the fact that we're not quite positive, and we also have some funds that are running out that have paid for operational expenses thus far.
Right, Sarah wanted to point out that there are a few funds that have been depleted that had been paying for operational expenses. Like I mentioned, the Haberman Memorial. Also, if you note on here, the kind of pink colored, that's their mission investment fund that was helping to cover a portion of the mortgage. That fund has essentially been depleted at this point as well. Bethany? Correct, we have paid last year's benevolence. The way that we have typically handled benevolence is to pay sort of on a 6-month rolling, in January, we write a check that represents, I think it was January through June of the previous year. So it's kind of a 6-month lag. At this point, we have dedicated, I think I've got the number in here somewhere. It's about $4,300 to benevolence. What we have paid this year essentially represents where we would typically be by the end of the year. We've paid 2 benevolence payments to the synod so far this year. We would typically make another one December, January sort of time. Heather? Question is how much we actually have in the bank account. $29,000 about. If you see from the previous slide, that basically represents the sum of those dedicated accounts. Any others? Oh, Norvilla. Sure, and Scott might need to help me here, but so every month in our accounting, we set aside, currently this year we're setting aside 5% of our general fund giving for synod benevolence. We track that amount through the course of the year, but it isn't set aside in a specific account. And then several times during the year, we write a check for that amount to the synod. We have written 2 checks to the synod so far this year. Essentially, where we would that's the typical amount of benevolence that we would typically have done for this year already. We're a little ahead of schedule. Right. Right. Yes, Beth. It is not on this summary, but it is in the more detailed. Yes, so Bethany's question was, does the synod benevolence show up? And it's not on the summary that I submitted for the meeting, but it is a liability that's shown on our balance sheets. So in the more detailed reports that go out to council every month, it is shown there. Heather? Any other outstanding liabilities at this point? Right. The only thing that is coming to my mind initially is some expenses related to bingo at the fair that had not been paid yet by the end of August. Or, our contributions to the fair as part of our agreement with the fair. I don't think there's, and anything else that's happened in September as far as well repair, that sort of thing, but no other significant outstanding items. Sarah? So no insurance stuff coming up to either employee insurance plans or? As far as insurance, we are current on our benefits payments, and actually, if any council, when you see the August numbers, August expenses look particularly high because we had just timing of those benefits payments. We had 2 of them in the month of August, and August was also happened to be a 3 pay period month. We also, our building insurance has not hit yet for this year. I'm not sure at what point in the year that's paid, but it's not due yet. Heather? No, those dedicated, you're looking at the summary? Yeah, there are other dedicated accounts, sorry, that are not shown on that summary. I can look at the total. Well, I mean, it would essentially be, Glenn, if you go back one slide, where that black line is right about 30. So it's actually a little higher than our current bank account. That 30-ish is just the dedicated funds. The total line on the next figure is slightly negative. Michelle? The question is, at the current rate we're going, how long do we have before we can't pay bills? And frankly, I don't know how to answer that with the way that we have the dedicated funds there. You know, we have had, and August is a good example, we have had some very strong giving months. August, unfortunately, we also had those high expenses that I mentioned that were just a timing issue, not really a spending issue. So, yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I don't know, Scott, if you have.
Well, we've been in this situation before where we had dedicated funds and we recognized the bill there, but that in essence those are funds that everyone came and wanted to collect, all the committees wanted to collect their money at any point in time. We would not have any money. But those have historically been out there at $8,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, and over time we've had to use those from time to time to pay the mortgage or whatever, and over time we
Right.
comes back in the planning.
Right.
We're back in that situation now where the dedicated funds are really, if everyone pulled those out, we would not have any money right now because they're not.
Right. I don't know if I can summarize that for the online audience, but you know, it's essentially that if all of these dedicated funds withdrew all of their money at this point, we would not be able to pay bills, but that has typically not happened. I mean, you can see there that Baby Pantry has been sitting in that $9,000 range for quite some time because, you know, their expenses are generally covered by ongoing donations. The Custodian Fund is not on here. Or that's on the other sheet. You know, Custodian Fund has been pretty, almost exactly in line with custodial expenses so far this year. It's like $50 difference. Yeah, Paul.
What do you figure that we're going to be short for secretarial? I know Marlene Haberman has let us use that money in the Haberman Memorial for years to pay for secretarial, but if that's gone, what do you figure that is per month?
In a typical 2-pay period month, I believe that's on the order of $350 per month.
Very, very valuable people.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion that if you have some extra funds sometime, I'm sure council can handle, if we direct that we're giving money to that fund, just like we do for custodial, that would take care of it. Don't let us just be passed or anything.
Paul's comment for the audience was just an encouragement to think about that additional, the value that it is to have Joanne as our office administrator, and encourage folks to think about that as they're thinking about additional giving.
Does that need to be a dedicated, I mean, so you can't give to somebody else's memorial?
That
Dedicated giving specifically to that, or is that just to the operating fund and then the operating?
The question is does it need to be a dedicated giving? And no, none of this needs to be dedicated with even building fund related. You know, a check to the general fund is one that we use to pay building related, pay the mortgage as well. So there, you know, giving in honor of those expenses, or in honor of those ministries, does not necessarily need to be dedicated to that for things like the building, like salaries, like, I mean, if we had a shortfall in custodial fund, we would pay it out of general giving as well, I believe. Norvilla was first. That's correct. $350 a month in a typical month-ish. I'm not sure that if that's about how much we were taking out of the Haberman Memorial in a typical month. I think. I believe that includes taxes and that sort of thing. Yep. No. Say, do you need me to repeat that for the? Right. Michelle, did you have another question? So yeah, is there a way to keep us alerted of the current bank account status? I mean, we've been working on, and it's been a kind of a painful process with Honor Bank of updating the check signers list, but also trying to get us online access to the bank account, even just to be able to see it more frequently than the once a month, you know, statements that we get. I think that's probably the best way, just to be able to check that more frequently than when we get our statements. Well, I mean, I think the other thing, just in terms of keeping us all informed, and I thank you for reminding me to mention this. One thing that we have discussed, that the council has discussed, and that I wanted to explain this here first, but going forward in the feed, that we are putting monthly donations and expenses in the feed, and previously we've been comparing them to the budget, or I guess for the donations. Previously we've been comparing the donations for every month to the budgeted amount for that month. Going forward, we're going to start comparing to the budgeted expenses rather than the budgeted income, because of that gap is so large. And it's, we don't want to be down there on that budgeted income line anyway. So I think, comparing, Glenn, if you go back a slide, so we'd essentially be comparing the gray line, the income, to the gold line, the total budgeted expenses, which is total. Well, in terms of what we provide in the feed, we can't provide the actual expenses that regularly. That, because there's the lag of getting it before council and getting council approval. So I think from what we can provide in the feed, looking at budgeted expenses, which is not so far off from where we are with actual expenses. Yeah, and we've, right. I'm not, so Norvilla's question is about how that can be qualified in the feed. I'm not sure how detailed we want to get with the qualifier in the feed there, but, we did start putting a disclaimer on there about the change, essentially. So you've been seeing a significant positive number because we're significantly above the budgeted giving, and it's going to change to a negative number. And so we've tried to qualify that. I guess I just would say that, for those who want more information, these plots are going to be part of the regular, monthly updates to council. And, now that we're back in the building more frequently, I'll try to do better about getting them posted in the community room back there. And I need to remind myself that all of these numbers through August are considered preliminary because they have not gone, this most recent month number has not gone to council yet. That will be in a week and a half. But this is what's going to be presented to council then. Here.
So we need a motion to approve the financial report that is included in your packet. It has nothing to do with the graphs and figures that Peter presented. That's just additional information for us. And like I said, council hasn't approved those last numbers for August yet. So this would be just a motion to approve the written report. Heather Lehman, ooh, and Paul seconds. It's a close second place, like a photo finish there. Do I have any further discussion about the financial report? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the report as it stands, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Oh, thank you, Peter abstains. Okay. And now for some stewardship updates. This is going to be obviously flushed out as we go, but if we have some preliminary information. I'll call Heather Lehman up. Thank you, Heather.
So one of the things that we're finding is Vanco is the parent company that handles all of our Simply Giving and our electronic information that comes into us as far as giving. So Vanco, probably about 3 months ago, they announced to us that they had developed their own app. Before we were using a link on our website. It was called, I can't remember what it was actually called, but you could go onto the website and link through that, and you could do a one-time donation, or you could do it so you, it usually was just a one-time donation. But what happened is Vanco decided to bring that in-house, and they developed their own app, and they developed their own online system. We've always been able to do Simply Giving, which is part of Vanco, and what that is congregation members would fill out a form, and it's kind of like a lot of you who deal with direct deposit through their work. So what happens is you would then give me the information saying this is how much I want to give on a continual basis, what we call a reoccurring amount, and it'd be the same amount every week or every month or every 2 weeks, however you decided to do that giving. So what happened is, what's nice is Vanco's developed their own app, and I wish I could, and I'll probably come around and just show it to you real quick, but what's nice is, I'm still part of the Simply Giving, but sometimes if I want to give like a one-time item or a one-time donation, and I'm like, oh, I forgot my checkbook, or I don't, most of us don't carry a checkbook anymore, or some of us don't. And so this was kind of a nice way. And I tested this out, and I actually set it up so like a $5 a week giving, and so it was really kind of nice. It's real smooth, real nice. You can cover there's obviously fees associated with using a debit card or a credit card, so you can click on saying, yes, I want to cover the fees. I think it was, I decided like on a $5 amount, and so I think the fee was like 5 cents. So what's nice is then that money is then automatically pulled into our financial system, rather than us having to run a report and hand enter it. So that's kind of nice too. So what we're trying to encourage people to do is use this app, because I'm sure a lot of you are getting used to everything's an app now, everything's on a phone. But we still encourage people, if you do want to write checks or make something in that aspect, it's still definitely available. We will always accept money to help the church. We will never say no. But we want to make things easier for people. You want to create as few barriers to giving as possible. So any way that we can help any of you or anybody in the congregation to help decide to give, we are more than welcome to figure out a way that it will work the easiest for you, or any questions you might have. You can always call me, email me, and ask questions. I have no problem with, sometimes I may send you an email at like 11 o'clock at night. You don't have to answer it, but that's usually what I'll do. So I have no questions of answering questions. I don't have any problem answering questions of how can I do this, and I will be more than willing to walk this through for people. But we do encourage people, you can use the app on your phone, you can download it, and I'll show you what it looks like. You can go onto the website, there's a link right there. What's nice is you can choose to give a one-time, sorry, you won't be able to see this, but you can do, and it'll walk you right through it. You put in an amount, you can say give to, you can, there's different funds. We have general building, agape, baby pantry, youth fund, custodial/office. You can do frequency, you can do it as a one-time gift, you can do it weekly, you can do it bi-weekly, and that's what's nice, you can do it monthly. So those options are there. Is there any questions anyone has about or pastors, or something I'm forgetting?
So we said, how many did we have total of giving units
So,
online in the last?
right. So what we found is we have 35 giving units that use the online giving. And that's usually like a family. So we have about 35 units of family member groups that give online every either week or monthly or bi-weekly. And then we have about a solid 10 people, groups, every family members every week that give in the church. What we'd like to really encourage people to do, I don't know about you, but I tend to, when I have something that's automatically deducted, whether it be my 401k or my insurance payment for my house or my insurance payment for my medical expenses, what's nice is when I know that those are consistent amounts every week or every month, I'm able to plan things out much better for myself and for our family, knowing that those items are already taken care of. And it's funny because when I talk to my guys at work about giving to their 401k, I'm like, guys, it's a pizza, that kind of thing. So I really encourage somebody, if you've never done this, start with $5 a week or $5 a month. And, maybe in a few months you bump it to $7 a week or something like that. I really encourage people, you start small and then just grow it. It's amazing what you can do, especially like anything that you place value on. It's amazing when you have that as a weekly or a monthly item, that how easy it is. You don't really, you don't miss it. And you at the end, you're encouraged because you feel what you've given to. So I encourage people to try it. And if you have any questions, I can walk you through how to do it. I can show you on the website where the link is too. All right?
Thank you, Heather. I'm going to call Pastor Tim up to talk about some educational updates.
Okay, so if you are a parent of an elementary school, you probably have heard from us in the last month or so. We've sent out postcards, we've sent out an online survey. We just want to know, where you all are at and what you feel that is really going to be helpful for your kids to grow in their faith. What I've heard back so far, generally speaking, is that people like the idea of children's church that's during the service. And liking the idea of possible online, continuing with Kids Zoom online. It's hard, like everybody else. Families are scattered in terms of what they think is going to be best for their kids and that kind of thing. What I'm setting a goal for with council and with this congregation in general is I need some help. So we're going to set a goal for some leadership that we hopefully are going to, as we gather the parents who have agreed to be part of this team, that we're going to sort of do a homegrown effort for Sunday school and Christian education. Adult education, there's some exciting things that have happened this year in terms of doing huddles and small groups, and we formed several small groups, and several of them are still going. We are going to be starting adult education real soon on the resource Baptized We Live, which is a really wonderful book by Daniel Erlander. So that's going to start up very soon. Confirmation starting up very soon. It's all starting, but again, like I said, this is the come to Jesus. We all need to take partnership in this ministry together. So that's everything. Are there questions about Christian education? All right, we're doing this together.
Okay, just a couple brief things from a council perspective to let you all know about. We have some agenda items that I wanted to talk with everybody about, just to let you know that we haven't forgotten about them in the last year and a half. We were treading water there for a while, so now we're going to get back to the meat of things. Two things that come to mind specifically are our Constitution. The model Constitution from the ELCA was updated in 2019, and we need to update our Constitution as well. So that the model Constitution is available online. You can just Google ELCA model Constitution, and there's a link to a document. You can pull it up and look through it. But what we're going to be doing as a council is kind of looking at our current Constitution and the new Constitution, and just comparing things and making sure that rings true for our congregation before we adopt that into practice. So as far as I am aware, the only things that we have done with our Constitution since its inception, or since we accepted it as our Constitution for our particular congregation, is adding those continuing resolutions that clarified what we were going to do about congregational meetings and council meetings if we were unable to gather in person in the church. So those things are part we would not need to have those continuing resolutions anymore if we adopted the model constitution, because those items are in there as just regular parts of the Constitution. And that's where we got the language for our continuing resolutions for those. And the second thing, well, actually, there's three things. Our policies and procedures, we're updating a lot of those. You might, if you pull up the website from a computer, you'll be able to see a link to our Constitution as it stands right now. And thank you to Joanne for making that possible. But also, Pastor Tim was talking during the service about how important it is to have a church that is welcoming and safe for kids. And so our child and vulnerable adult protection policy is on there. And soon we will have some links to videos so you can say that you did all of the training. And we can certainly have groups that come in, if we want to do it after church sometime and do it as a group. But having it online will be really nice too, so just so we can make sure everybody's caught up to speed by the time their event or whatever it is they're doing to help with the youth happens. So that is online. Other policies and procedures like the wedding policy is online as well. So there's some policies that we're gonna obviously don't need to be on our website, and those will be kept, just for us, and we can update you on those policies as we upgrade them a little bit without putting them on the website. And some of them, like we talked about, are important to be on the website. Pastor Tim was mentioning during a council meeting, especially for the child and vulnerable adult policy, that's important to have online, to be the face of Advent, to demonstrate that we care about our kids and their safety, but also as a deterrent to people who might be looking at a space to do something that we need to protect the kids from. So then we have our mission statement, which I think there has been some strong support for updating that and reviving that and taking another look at that. We did have a council retreat pre-COVID where John Jeffries came and really did a lot of exciting work teaching the council about mission statements and a value statement and the process that goes along with that. So as a council, what we're going to do, and we have reached out to John Jeffries, and so we'll keep being in touch with him about that. My vision for us as a council is that we would lay the groundwork for the process for the mission statement. And then we as a congregation really need to come together to do that as a church family and not have this be council just driving it, but council will just lay the groundwork for the process, and then we'll all be invited to take care of updating our mission statement together. Any other questions for council as a whole? Okay, yeah. So we are doing in-person meetings. Most of them are still happening at 7 o'clock. I've been trying to update the feed if we have to change it for some reason. They are a hybrid form, so people can call in if they need to. And that, unfortunately, needs to stay that way for a while because of Peter and I both being not on council, but both of us needing to attend council meetings. One of us has to be not in person because of childcare stuff. So that's just. Is that link available then? Yeah, so the link to the council meetings, we can make sure that that's, I know that we had initially put that in the feed, but we can keep sending that link with the council updates on when the meetings happen. So yeah, anyone is, and we'll see you calling in because we almost always, because of Peter and I, have somebody calling in online. So that meeting is, it's not like we forget about it if everybody's in person. There's always a Zoom component to those. Yes, Bethany.
Really appreciate ongoing information in the feed,
Okay,
a paragraph every week that tells us more about what is happening.
okay, so,
So you could take the agenda and
uh-huh,
tell us what the conversation was, and you'd have a whole month to tell it on the feed. But I think
oh, I see what you're saying.
information is so important.
Yeah. So you're saying the updates would be monthly, but to break it out into sections in the feed, so you have one section each week going out in the feed? Okay.
Even though it hasn't been approved.
What, we can certainly,
Can it just be discussed or outline the agenda items?
yeah. So we could do it from the previous month once they're approved, or if there's council initiatives that we're starting, that aren't necessarily directly related to the minutes, but like, for instance, the education initiative where we had Pam sending out a postcard, and then we had council members following up with people via phone call and that sort of thing to kind of gather more information. That could be something that we would share on the feed that wouldn't have to necessarily wait for minutes approval. Yeah, Norvilla.
What I think I'm hearing, and I have no problem being corrected, is anything that would not be business related that would need a vote. Like the educational stuff, or the garden committee is, prayer garden committee is meeting, those sorts of things. I think you could highlight after every council meeting and just give you a little list, but I'm not sure that if there's anything that needs to be voted on.
Right.
It has to be passed by a vote, that it would be appropriate to just sort of toss out as general information. Would that give you enough information, Bethany?
Yes, it would.
Okay. What else are you missing that you think you're missing?
Well, I like to have it be more current events rather than a month and a half ago. That does not help me at all. But for instance, if I knew what the agenda was, or things that have not been approved yet, then if I had issues with it, or questions about it, I could contact a council member before
Right.
it becomes final.
So I'm just going to recap the situation or the conversation here, just in case we have people listening online. The request was for more frequent updates from council via the feed, and the conversation, the highlights have been, we can provide some updates on initiatives or plans that we are rolling out that are not business related, and would not need a vote on but prior to council approval of the minutes the next month. The other thing that I heard was that it would be nice to have the agenda for the council meeting as maybe a link in the feed or directly in the feed the week before council meeting, if possible, so that if people had concerns or questions, they could call a council member, or they could plan on listening in via Zoom or attending in person in the building that week. Okay. That sounds like a good plan to me. So, yeah. About what? We already voted on it.
It was a question.
Okay.
The question about administrative expenses. Norvilla, I said the wrong number. $450. $450 a month, not $350.
Okay, and now I have left some time open here to talk about some of our ministries, just so we can end on a really positive note for all the good things that we've been doing. I don't know if we have any representatives from Needle Crafters here. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to send a kudos out to all of the, I don't want to call them knapsacks, but the drawstring bags they were beautiful, and they were a million times better than a garbage bag. So I wanted to congratulate you guys and really thank you for that ministry that is going to be so important to those foster kids. Yeah. And then Habitat for Humanity. Glenn has been working really hard with several different counties to try to get Advent involved in some habitat projects. So Glenn, do you want to come up and talk about that? Or do you want me to just pat you on the back? No, okay, come on up.
No, I want all the pats.
Okay.
No, we worked with Benzie County. We made numerous contacts with Benzie County to see if Benzie County has a project that we could help with. We know they're building a house down in Thompsonville, and we wanted to be involved with that project. There's some delay on that construction project, waiting for some materials to show up. Doesn't look like timing is going to work out as well with them. So we have contacted the Traverse City region, and they're doing a large project in Maple City. So the same kind of thing, we've been working with them, trying to get a coordination of time. They were originally going to use us in an estate sale, a fundraiser that they had. They needed some manpower with that. Wouldn't require you to have a hammer or construction skills to work on that. They decided to do all that in-house since they were handling money. And this estate sale, they're going to use their own staff to do that. So that we're out on that project. So the next thing is with that Traverse City region is they're looking for construction projects up in Maple City. There looks like 6 houses total to be done. So starting in the spring, it's going to be very busy in the spring, and we'll have multiple opportunities then to work with them on an actual construction project, probably in Maple City. But they'll keep us up to date as that project moves forward and they get final approval for that. So we'll be coming back to find out what is everybody's interest and skills and how we can assemble a team together and help with that.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you, Glenn. We also had an opportunity to work with Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services providing care kits, and that was Pam and Jill that kind of headed that up. Oh, sorry, Lutheran World Relief. That's wrong in the agenda then. Lutheran World Relief. So those packets are being sent out to other countries. Yes. Do you know which countries we're sending them to? Wherever they are needed.
But there is a way to track them, so.
You're kidding. That's so cool.
So after, by the way.
Do you want to come talk so people can hear? Come on up.
Not only the personal care kits, but the Needle Crafters group is also in the process of making fabric kits that will be sent to Lutheran World Relief along with the personal care kits. The fabric kits, the funding for that was obtained through Thrivent. And if you're a Thrivent member, there is a way that you can get access to a $250 debit card to support a project in your congregation or in the community, and that's what we did. So we bought enough fabric to make these kits, and they're going to be shipped, taken to an in-gathering in Alpena in October, and each box will have a label on it with our church name, what's in the box, and there will be a barcode, a tracking. And this is all something that I can access and do on my computer. So in about 6 months' time, we'll know where everything went. So that's cool.
Yes, Michelle.
I just want to make a suggestion.
Yeah.
We all have one of these, and they all have cameras on them. And if you're doing a ministry like that, take some pictures. And if you have pictures on your phone from things, if you could email them into Joanne so we can start collecting. Because it would be nice to hear about this stuff more than just once every month. So yeah, everybody just encourage, please, take pictures and send them in.
Absolutely. And I know Becky is not here right now. What? Oh, sure, yeah. But I wanted to give her a huge kudos for bingo at the fair. That was like a biblical story of moving mountains to make that happen. But she had the vision and the passion, and she really made it happen. So Pastor Tim has her report, so he can kind of give you the highlights.
Well, I just got the financial statement. The big story is, the people story is that Advent was able, we were looking for partners, and that we ended up having to go it alone. So it really, they did a wonderful job, and really I do, thank Steve, Becky, we really want to be thankful for their ministry of doing this. We ended up raising $2,793. 1,000 of that is going to go back to the fair for the steer barn to help the youth, with 4-H. And the remainder of that is going to help with the prayer garden, and it is going to go to Hunger Ministries right here in Benzie County. So hungry people are going to be fed because of the work that you did. So thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions, concerns, comments?
Sarah, real quick,
Yes, Paul.
we are, I believe, going to be able to pull off the sportsman's dinner.
Excellent. That's a fall event or a?
It's going to be this year, we've already made purchases. We, as always, would welcome any hunting, fishing, sportsman type donations, like for the silent auction.
Sure.
If anybody wants to work on that, it will be, unless something happens where we can't meet in person, it'll be the first Monday of November. And I'll keep the congregation updated.
Okay, so just an update in case we have people online. Paul says the Sportsman's Dinner is happening the November 1st. And if anybody has hunting, fishing, sporting items they would like to donate to the silent auction, we would welcome those at this time, and more information to come on that. Any other comments? Yes, Bethany.
We really need some more people to pitch in and help with altar care. It's not a
Okay.
big job, it just means you have to show up and set up before the service. You can come the night before if you want. And then take care of all the dirty dishes afterwards. And you can talk to me or you can talk to Joanne, but we're hurting.
Okay, so Bethany says that she and Joanne are looking for more volunteers for altar guild, altar duty. They desperately need our help. So even if you can, pitch in once a quarter or once a month, that would be really helpful. So just to get in touch with Bethany or Joanne about that, you can even email the church where Joanne will happily receive your email. Yes. That is right. Come on up and talk to us about that. Come on up.
I was looking at the dates and I was like, oh wait, we did a vacation Bible school. We did a 1-day vacation Bible school with, in coordination with the United Methodist Church down the street. And we were able to have a fair type vacation Bible school where we had different stations that everybody went to, and they went as a family. So we didn't have to get permissions for anything because the parents were there and stayed with the kids. That was really nice to have that. And we were really able to pull it off. It was called Faith Grows, and we Ken came and helped with planting flower seeds, and all the parents had such a blast, and we had so much fun. I thought, we can do this, we can pull this off, and we did. So I coordinated with Julie, and we were able to get it done. We had it down at the Lake Canyon United Methodist Church Community Center in their big giant yard. So, all right. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana. I think one of the highlights was the seed spitting competition. That was, yeah, yes. Tim Wilson, yes. Okay, if there's no additional comments, I would like to call Pastor Tim up for our adjourning prayer, and then you're going to stick around because we have to vote to adjourn the meeting, okay?
Holy Spirit, we thank you for gathering us. We ask that you would now send us out, that you would give us zeal for ministry, that we would be able to see your presence in the outside world and be able to participate in it and be able to bring that good news of what you're doing out there back in here for our brothers and sisters in faith, so that we could be able to share the news of what happens here out there and share the good news of what's happening out there in here, and in that way to participate in your kingdom. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 12:15? Okay. Amy Airforth makes the motion, and then, okay, thank you. Peggy Burns. Amy Airforth, and then Peggy seconds, and then we're all going to say aye. No, just kidding. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstained? Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.